What is extend? In object-oriented programming, we have something called inheritance. And what that allows us to do is it allows us to share code across classes. So there are more general classes that have certain methods and properties. And then those can be extended so that we have subclasses. And they're more specific classes that inherit all of the methods and properties of the class that it's extending. So that would be called the superclass. It's inheriting all of the methods and properties of the superclass, or the base class. And it itself is a subclass, so it will have its own methods and properties as well. Let's go in and take a look. So this is a very important aspect of object-oriented programming, inheritance, and extend is how we do that. So here is a game class in JavaScript, and that would be fairly generic, wouldn't you say? A game class. And it has certain properties that most games would have. Player, it has a play method, it's got a total, and it's got a restart. So these are all fairly generic things, and we might want to design a more specific class, a subclass called like a type of a game, such as a board game or a tile game. Let's do a tile game. So function tile game. There is the tile game class, and it may have methods and properties of its own, such as how many tiles. So that might look like this dot num is equal to 10. So there, 10 tiles. And we don't want only just the properties of the tile game and the methods of the tile game. We want to extend the game class up here, this game class. We want to inherit all of the properties and methods that belong to the game class. And the way we do that is like so. Tile game dot prototype is equal to a new game. Now this is how we do it in our current JavaScript, in ECMAScript 6 and JavaScript 6. There is an extend keyword, there's also a class keyword and a super keyword. These are keywords that we would want to be able to use for doing extending and inheritance. But in this version of JavaScript, we use the prototype object and we assign a new game to that prototype, which means when we go and make our tile game, such as var tile equals a new tile game, you might recall that this tile game object here starts off with all of the methods and properties of the prototype. And we have assigned a new game to that prototype. So that means the tile game will inherit, will receive a player property, a play method, a total property, and a restart method. These guys were assigned to the prototype of the game. And when we make a new game object, that new game object has all of these properties. And if we assign that to the prototype of tile game, now tile game, this tile game object right here, will have all those properties as well. So let's prove that. We can zog tile dot, and here let's get its own num property. So this one was created only in tile game, so only tile game has a num property. And now let's ask for one of the inherited properties. Tile dot total, for instance. Tile dot total. So we should get a num of 10 and a total of 55 showing up in the console. View that in a browser, and F12. And there is 10 and 55 because we extended the game class, and the game class came with a total property of 55, and that's what we're asking for. Cool. Now just a bit of housekeeping. There's a property that points to the constructor of a class. And the constructor is there, so TileGame would normally have that as a constructor. But when we set the prototype to new game, along with that comes a constructor of new game. So we'll just override that by saying TileGame.prototype.constructor is equal to TileGame. I'll just put it back to what it should be. Now that's a reference only. It's not really that much to bother. We could ask what the constructor of a class is, or of an object is, and it will tell us what it was made from, and sometimes that can be handy. Alrighty, another thing that you'll note we didn't take care of, if you recall, the game class had a parameter that was being passed in. And we've got this TileGame that's extending a new game, and yet we're not passing in a parameter. As a matter of fact, there's not an easy way to do that. It becomes a little complex, and I don't want to get into it. Now, luckily, Create.js has provided a nice, easy way to get around that, and they provide an extend helper function. And that is how we can extend Create.js objects. And Zim has extended a number of Create.js objects. For instance, a Zim container extends a Create.js container. And for that to work, it's required that we call the constructor on the Create.js container. Now, like I said, there's not an easy way to do that here. But, you know, it's a few extra lines, but a little bit complicated looking. So what we're going to do is we're going to pop on up here. What I really wanted to do was show you how to extend a Zim class, for instance, a Zim circle. And to do that, we'll use the same type of technique that Create.js provided. We'll use an extend function. So let's have a look at that. We'll also see how to call the constructor there. So that looks like, how about we'll make a ball class function. Ball. And there it is, a ball class. And we'll make this extend with Zim.extend. We'll make the ball class extend a Zim.circle. So that means it will be just like a circle to start. You know, we can add certain things to it, and we shall. But here it is extending a circle. Now, what the extend does, and this piggybacks, or it's the same type of function as the Create.js one, what it does is it provides a prefix that we can use to access any of the methods that belong to the superclass circle. So that prefix is super underscore. So if we say this dot super underscore, constructor is the name of the property, which happens to be the constructor, and we're going to run it. So this will run the constructor, it will run the Zim circle, and therefore we can pass into it, if we want, the parameters for that Zim circle. For now we'll just hard code them, but we'll make them dynamic in just a second. Let's make it red. So there we are calling the constructor and passing in those parameters. Now this prefix here of super underscore, there's another parameter in extend where you can set the name for that if you want. There's also another parameter or two that relate to overriding. So you might want to take a look at the documentation, and we'll talk more about that in an upcoming what is. All right, so let's see if this works. And we can give us a var ball is equal to a new ball, like so. And then we can say ball.center on the stage. And you may be wondering, well, where does center come from? Well, center is a method of Zim circle. And because we've extended the circle, the ball extends the circle, we now inherit that method, the center method, amongst all the other methods as well of a circle, such as drag, etc. So there's us saying, hey, ball.center on the stage, and let's take a look in a browser. We should see a red ball. There's a red ball sitting on the stage indeed. Now, we don't always want it to be red, so normally we would want to say, hey, when we make a ball, we know what color it will be. Let's do the radius too, we may as well. We'll give it a radius of, say, 200 and a color of blue. So if we pass that in there, we would collect it inside a ball here. We would say radius and color, or whatever we want to use. So there we are collecting two parameters. And then we won't hard code it at 100. We'll pass it a radius and a color here. Color. And that gets sent to the constructor of the circle. So now a 200 radius circle that is blue will be made. Let's take a look. Let me refresh here. Now it's a bigger blue circle. Now you might be thinking, well, what's the big deal? We could have just made a new circle. I could have just said, make the ball a new circle that's 200 in blue. Yeah, so we haven't really done anything ourselves yet. So now let's do that. Let's add more to the subclass. We know this is a ball. What things would a ball have that a circle might not? Well, how about balls bounce? So we could say this dot bounce is equal to a function. And inside here, we can make the ball bounce, such as this dot animate. And we will animate, here's our animation object. So we will animate the Y property to 100. Well, let's add 100 to itself. So we'll say this dot Y minus 100, because that's up. And then we can say rewind that please. We'll set the rewind to true. So here's our bounce method on the ball. Hence we can say ball dot bounce. And now we will see a bouncing, what color shall we make now? Let's see, we've done red, we've done blue. Can we see yellow? Yeah, sure, we'll try yellow. So now we should have a yellow bouncing ball on the stage. We save that and refresh here. Oh, look at it bounce. Oh, did you see that? Refresh. Boing. All right, that's great. So you see, it's not really that bad to extend a ball. So here we are, we're extending, a circle, making a ball that extends a circle. And we have to, for the Create.js side, we have to call this the constructor of the superclass. And we're lucky that we can do that, because that allows us to properly pass in the parameters to the circle. That was something that we were scratching our head about down here. Let's see. When we were a tile game, we made a new game. The question was, how do we get from the parameters of the tile game to call the superclass of game on here? We didn't seem to have an easy way. And indeed, I'll leave that to you to do some research on that, because I really don't care anymore. We now have an easy way to do that in Zim by just saying this dot super constructor. We can call other methods on the super class as well by saying this dot super, whatever methods are there, such as clone, for instance. And that would call the clone method on the superclass. More about that when we talk about overriding, and that's in an upcoming what is. We're doing the what is on extend. Isn't that exciting? I'm inventor Dan Zen here at zimjs.com. Have a great day.